What's up, guys? Today we're talking about a BMW engine. It is the N52 N51 engine variant, the 6-cylinder. That engine started in 2006 with the E90 Series. They put it in a bunch of different models, but we're going to talk about some of the common issues that I see with the N52 engines. First thing, I'm sure you guys know of this, but if you don't, they are very common with their oil leaks. The N52s, the most common oil leaks are the oil filter housing gasket, the valve cover or the valve cover gasket, and the oil pan gasket. At some point during the ownership, you will have a leak from one of these components. Decently sized jobs, all of them, the oil pan gasket being the biggest one. The oil filter housing gasket is probably between the oil filter housing gasket and the valve cover gasket. One of those are going to happen first before the oil pan gasket ever leaks. Be aware with the valve cover gaskets, sometimes it's not just the valve cover gaskets, the actual valve cover assembly itself. They tend to crack, especially higher mileage cars. You know, as you approach 100,000, or if you're over 100,000, it's probably a good idea to just replace the entire valve cover. An important thing with the oil filter housing gaskets, when they start to leak, you don't want it to go too long leaking, because it leaks down the front of the engine. Eventually it gets onto the belt and the pulleys, and we've seen it a bunch of times where it leaks for a while, it gets on the belt slips off, it gets shredded, and that causes a whole bunch of other problems. So you want to fix that sooner than later. Next thing with the E90s, with the N52s, well, any N52 actually, in any model, misfires due to ignition coils failing. At some point, your ignition coils, they are going to fail. They are going to cause a misfire. That is something to keep an eye out for. They do have an updated one. There is a bulletin on it, updated ignition coils. So keep that in mind when you are replacing them. I can try to link the part number in the description. Next thing we see a lot at the dealership, cars come in, we inspect them. The belt and the belt tensioner, more so the belt tensioner, starts to wear out, and you can see when it's worn out because the belt actually starts to slip off of the pulley, and the belt is hanging, you know, off of the pulley like 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch sometimes. That's when you know the belt tensioner is completely worn. And when you do the tensioner, you should do the belt with it and do it all in one shot, not have to worry about it. The next one, guys, it's the Vanos solenoids. They cause check engine lights. They control the oil flow to the Vanos actuators, the camshaft gears, the Vanos unit that adjusts the timing. The solenoids, they control all the oil pressure that goes to them. So when they fail, you'll get Vanos faults. They are a bit pricey. So the first thing I would try is taking them out, cleaning them, spraying them down with brake clean, giving them a good shake, cleaning them again. One thing to check for if you do have those faults, people use aftermarket oil filters, and those oil filters fail pretty bad to the point where it caves in, and where the filter slides onto, there's like a neck, and that pretty much dislodges from its position. It kind of breaks off, and it causes the oil not to be filtered anymore. And it kind of changes the pressure of the oil going to the Vanos solenoids, and that could give you Vanos faults as well. So the first thing to check for are those dirty Vanos solenoid valves. Take them out, look for, you know, debris or whatever, clean them. And before you do that, take that oil filter cap off where your oil filter goes into. Make sure it's an OEM filter or a high quality filter, and make sure the shaft that the oil filter slides onto didn't get dislodged. That's a huge culprit in causing Vanos faults. And a lot of people, they'll go right for the Vanos solenoids, replace them, they still have faults, and they find out it's just that. So if that does ever happen, you do want to change the oil when you replace, when you find that oil filter shaft disconnected, because that oil was just getting, you were running the engine with the oil not being filtered. So the oil is definitely dirty. Another one we see, a lot of people don't know about it too much, but it's the eccentric shaft sensor. It's a little sensor on the front part of your valve cover that tends to leak oil, and we do see, when you pull the connector off for the eccentric shaft sensor, you'll see oil leaking through the pins. That's when you know it's starting to fail. It could get so bad where it leaks so bad it pushes the oil into the connector at the DME side. It actually travels through the wires, believe it or not. So that's something you want to take care of sooner than later. That can cause rough idling, little rough running engine. So that is something to check if you're going to buy the car or just doing a regular inspection on it. Just pop that connector off, see if you have oil inside that connector. I'll link a picture. I'll show you a picture of it on the screen. Next thing we see a lot, guys, is the water pumps. They are electronic water pumps. Just something to keep in mind with the cooling system. You'll get like an overheat message. Water pumps, we see them fail usually 60 to 100,000 miles, 80,000 to 100,000 miles. We do see them fail. When you do the water pump, make sure to replace the thermostat with the water pump. Just knock it all out at once. You're gonna have to, whoever's doing the job, taking the water pump out, you pretty much have to take the thermostat out with it. So it's not gonna be any more labor. You just replace them both in one shot. You won't have to worry about it again. And the last thing I see, pretty common on the E90s, for as far as coolant leaks, they call it the Mickey Mouse hose. It's a plastic hose with like a little plastic flange, and it goes into the engine block, and it's right below the oil filter housing with two little 10mm bolts. That hose tends to leak. The hose goes back and connects to a different, another main hose. It's near the water pump. That hose leaks where it goes into the cylinder head. That little plastic flange, it just fails. Something to keep an eye out for. Usually the signs before it actually just lets go, you'll see crusty coolant starting to form around that Mickey Mouse, the flange. And they call it the Mickey Mouse hose because it kind of looks like Mickey Mouse ears where the bolts are with the flange. So just another thing to keep an eye out for. And that'll do it, guys. Those are the most common things I see with the N51, N52 engine on the BMW 3 Series, E90s, E92s, E93s. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, if I missed something that you guys see a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. And until then, I'll catch you on the next video.